Good morning. It is Tuesday morning, just before 8:30. Another one of these days where it's supposed to rain around noon. And so I did a batch of mortar really early so that it can be cured by the time the rain comes. So the big thing I did today was getting behind there. I don't know if you can see that. Here we go down here. But I got a second coat on this whole part where that piece of plywood was standing. So that was really big, especially in the junction between where it was and the initial wall. There was like this big gap where it wasn't totally like even, and so that will make it a lot stronger. And then similarly, if you can see over there, the back of that one got its first coat as well. So that really solidifies those two sections. And then I got mortar on all the way up to the peak up there. I think that's going to be the tallest point. Put a crenellation there. There might be a little bit taller, but we'll see. And then a second coat on all of, or not a second, probably like a fourth coat on some of that. And just smoothing it all out to make sure it's nice and strong and straight, because it's so narrow and everything. It needs to be straight to have strength, and then it can have lots of strength. I got a little mortar started around that corner so that I can start getting it over to here along that piece of rebar. But I think this is all the mortar. Oh yeah, and then all on this, the whole top part of that, and then some sections on that. The reasons I didn't get the other sections is because there's a big gap in between the plywood and the lath there. So, because it's not totally flat. And anyways, that's where everything is today. I'm going to go grab some more materials, get some more rebar, and maybe a couple pieces of remesh for when I end up making this wall here, which I might start this week, I'm not sure. Oh, and then the last thing is, here I got the first mortar on the base of this column there. So that started out, and that's the straightest one. So I want to get that one cemented in first, and then I can work on these other ones. Like you can see, the one next to it is leaning out, and then the column beyond that is leaning in. Somehow I would like to even those out a bit if I can, though I might not be able to. And that is all for today and for the mortar. Next update will probably be adding more metal lath and stuff and rebar and getting the top section complete with the metal so that I can be ready for mortar. But rain later today, so probably no more mortar today. Okay, bye. Hello, it is Wednesday afternoon. I've got a good bit of metal work done since the last video. I put that, you can see that big long diagonal strap is helping to pull the top of that wall in an inch or two while it's still flexible, so that it's perfectly vertical, or a lot closer to vertical, and so that when I add more mortar, it'll hold it in place there. It was leaning out a little bit too much, and so that fixes that. And I got some lath over here on this part, and then there's lath all the way up around top. I got a second piece of rebar on top, so that there's the beam on top has rebar on both sides, which originally I was thinking I was just gonna have one piece of rebar on top as opposed to the double. But I decided that the double would be necessary, at the very least on this part, to be able to have all the structural strength I need. Reinforcing that corner, the crenellation, and there's more rebar in here. Got more lath on here, on the top row there and there, and then cut lath around the windows here, bent it up and over the rebar. It was supposed to rain by now. I think it's like 2 p.m. I would have done mortar this morning, but I've just been doing metal. Forecast was calling for rain. This is an area where I figured out how to use these things, these squares, in conjunction with those poles, which are the greenhouse things that I took apart. And that's squeezing those squares up to the lath. So from the outside, I can climb up and easily plaster over that whole section. And then once it's plastered, then I can take them back down and then plaster the inside and take those poles down as well. I've done a lot of wrangling with these uprights here, and essentially none of them are really straight or vertical, and I'm kind of going with it. The next step is to add the lath around these two rebar verticals here, like this one was added. That PVC is just there temporarily to keep the tail of it straight, but the idea is that it's wider on one end and kind of tapered on one end, and will be interesting as far as how structural those actually are, because they're so thin and so tall, but they will at the very least add the vertical support, which is vertically holding that beam up, and that beam there is going to be adding most of the support, which is going to stabilize these two walls at those tall points on the ends. And you can see up here, it's like there's the beginning of the crenellation. So the or it's called the merlon. The individual thing there that goes above the top is a merlon, and when you have multiple merlons, it forms crenellations, where I think technically the crenellation is the space in between the merlons. I gotta look that up, but that's kind of the idea, that the second piece of rebar will kind of be the height of the crenellations, and then the merlons will go up above that to give it the traditional kind of castle facade look from that direction, which is really the main purpose of this whole thing, other than that it creates a really cool effect whenever you're down in the courtyard and you look up at this, and then it creates the second layer of this being up there, and it looks really cool even before it's rocked in, as far as just the whole perspective in the courtyard and everything. And oh, I also added the carabiners to each of those arches, so working off the idea, and so that there can be like hanging baskets in there, and each one of those, once it's in properly, will hold hundreds of pounds. So you can have huge hanging baskets and like viney tomatoes, all sorts of things hanging up and out of the way of the critters, cherry tomatoes, all sorts of great stuff. And it'll have really good sun in all four of these arches here where the carabiners are, because it'll get all this sun, because there's not going to be a roof on this. It's going to be open roofed. So yeah, I'm really happy with how it's all turning out, and there's a lot of work to do, and I've done a lot of work. There's a lot left to do. This one is going to be really interesting. Look how crooked that one is, and I'm going to leave it like that really crooked rebar, but I'm going to try to hide the crookedness, somewhat correct, somewhat hide it, using the these quarter width things of lath, where I cut a full sheet in half and then bend each half in lengthwise, hot dog wise. So I got two more of those. So just like that, just like I did the first column, I'll do a column on each one of those two vertical pieces of rebar. And pretty much just doing all of the prep today, so that tomorrow I can, I think tomorrow is good weather, where I'll be able to add mortar to all of these different sections, or at least to get a start on all of these different sections, and then make a lot of progress tomorrow. But I'll have a few more pieces to do before then, like those two columns I mentioned. But in general, you get a really good view of what the whole thing's like. That's all for now. So I'm going to give you a before shot of the outside here. The chickens are exploring the south field. So I'm going to get some coverage and all this stuff that doesn't have any yet on that side. And then on that side. And then those things up there, I'll get a first coat on all that. It's about 8:30 and it should be a productive day of mortar. And I'll give you after I finish down here, I'll show you up there. So it took me more mortar than I expected. That was like almost 3 buckets, I think. But got good coverage on everything I could reach. I couldn't get to the right side of that, of the top right square. And I couldn't totally fill that out. But a lot of progress over here. And on to the next part. So here's a quick view of those 2 columns before I mortar them up. You can see how that one, the closer one, which is where the rebar is all crooked, it moves all around in that column, but the column itself is going to end up being pretty much like level or vertical or whatever. The only one that had an issue was the third one with the PVC here, because I had to taper it a little bit going up to try to make it a little more, well, I couldn't make the front side level, so one of the ways I addressed it was making it narrower on top. And hopefully it'll, well, it'll be fine. It'll just look slightly different, but it'll be fine. Anyways, I've got the mortar all ready, and I'm going to start applying it on this side now. We're just going to do a little before and after. And here is the after, just the first batch. It was more, maybe a batch and a half. But I got initial mortar on all of the columns as high as I could go, and then on this part, and maybe at the end of the day, after all that has solidified, I might be able to add on to the columns and to above them. Got a little more over here, a little more over there. So that's two batches. It's still early morning. So I'll take a nice break, and then I think what I'm going to do next is do kind of a meticulous batch where I mix it real thick, and then I meticulously add it to the vertical areas where there's no backing, where it's thick enough to do that. It's a very slow process, but I have a lot of time to do it, so I'll try to make some progress on that back wall, up above, in between those areas, and maybe some of these other areas, wherever I can get more mortar on the structure. That's what I'll do this afternoon. But here's how it's all looking now. Down to, I think I've, well, two pieces of rebar left, and that should be just enough to, I guess, hopefully finish, other than this wall here. But anyways, yeah, it's the mortar is on the metal, and as that dries, it transforms this from a bunch of metal tied together to a big stone. So it's a really cool kind of transformative process, tying it all together in this way and to make it one big rock. That's all for now. So it turned out these squares worked really well. Perfectly flat. This one's ready to come down. So that was, I already took the poles off. Yeah, look at this one around the rebar. So good. So I'm going to end up resetting those squares probably above. I didn't do what I said in the last video of doing the meticulous stuff, but I did get another batch on, packing some areas out, and adding to different areas. That was Arthur. Arthur, what are you doing up there? You're not supposed to be on the facade wall, Arthur. Making noise on the wall. What a bad boy. And then that one, yeah, my life is full of chicken noises. That one didn't get fully plastered on the backside, so I'm leaving it up. And then I'm going to see if I can set that one there. These ones had a little bit more issue because they weren't all as tight as they need to be, which was the problem with this plywood also. Because if it's too far away, it ends up being way thicker than I want it. The whole point of this method is to make the cement really thin, and then you have minimal usage of materials while still getting all the benefits of a cement structure. So right now these pillars are all tensioned. Like this one is getting seriously pulled that way as hard as I could pull it with the wire, and then that pallet is sitting on the wire to pull it even further out so that one's getting level. This one is then getting pulled inward on a thing here, so I've got an obstacle of trip wires, and then these are trying to straighten them out like side to side. And the idea is that once all the mortar's in place, then I can cut the wires, which is what I just recently did around that tire, which had a bunch of wires kind of like tensioning off the tree and in different things, and it's totally solid there now and can reuse the wires that I cut away. That piece of rebar there is just holding that one, pushing it out because it wants to come in, so pushing it out and then getting that mortared in place. Basically all of this has to stay under tension at least until that whole top bond beam is full, and that's rather difficult to even access this part of it from over here with the ground being uneven. So I was thinking maybe I should do the whole aircrete thing on the ground, which will raise it and make it level, but that requires figuring out this hole and kind of making this a bathtub, a number of different steps, and really I just want to get it up there. So I'm going to try to figure out how to do that. I got another ladder, but I don't think I can set it up here. But anyways, these three worked out really well, and I've already got a second coat on the back side of them for the most part. I'll just smear it over the inside on the next coat, and probably take these vertical poles out next so that I can smear all in between and make it one continuous face. That is the end of the video update for now. I gotta chase Arthur off the roof. But here's another great example of the squares working really well. I took the first one off, and then this one rolled back, and that'll help me, it'll help push that out. How I got it kind of pinched in there will help push out doing the other two. And then once I make this next batch of mortar, I can cover up this from the inside, and then basically got continuous coverage up to the rebar for that whole duration almost. I got to get that corner too. That corner is important for stabilizing everything. It's the end of the day, Thursday. I managed to do 4 batches today. Looks like it'll be good weather tomorrow for a mortar, I think. I got like double coats on either side of the column, so I did like the core in the morning, and then I got an extra coat on either side today. Same with this one, which will be this is like the biggest structural support as far as left and right, so it's got a lot on it, and a lot more over here. And then these squares that were done from the other side are smeared and connected, so tomorrow they'll be pretty solid. I can take out those 2 poles, and yeah, otherwise it's mostly these columns and stuff, and it won't be totally solid till I get the beam. That's all. It's Monday morning, doing a little prep. That oh, it's so solid now. And this whole wall, so I was just able to take this pallet down, and this little corner piece that I put on is really solid, so this will make the wall appear to be thicker than it is, but it's all just so solid already, just so satisfying. But I'm gonna on the first coat I do, I will cover this, and then I'm gonna work on the whole outside as well. Try to get mortar all the way over to the window there, as well as up there, and then put a square in that final square. So I'm doing the prep for that, and then I'm gonna mix, and you'll see that this corner here will get totally transformed. I'll be able to cover all this, hide all the intricacies, and turn it into a monolith. It is Friday evening, and got 3 batches done today. Got this piece of plywood taken off on this side, so that this side, I got a lot of mortar on this side today. So that whole area where there's the pallet is largely smoothed out. You can still see some ripples, but I made a lot of progress. And then similarly where that plywood was, mostly smoothed over, and that third section almost out to the window. So this wall, at least on the outside, is like somewhere between 2/3, probably about 2/3 done. And then here's this corner here. So the corner is totally integrated too. And then over here, reinforcing the columns a little bit, getting more mortar up on that top beam, reinforcing this corner here. I still haven't gotten a good look in here, and that you can see what it looks like in there. I've got to figure out that area there. See if I can get a good look of it. That gap, I think it'll get filled with mortar mostly. And then I guess just more on this wall, smoothed all that out. And a little more over there. Oh, I didn't get to this. I took this square off. I was able to get the back side of it. I took the square off. I was meaning to smear over that with my last batch, but I didn't get to it. But I did get a little bit more up top there. And I'm not sure about weather going forward, but I'm just going to do as much mortar as I can. And that's all for now. Yeah, it is Friday afternoon. And I managed to get 2 more batches done today. Getting a lot more coverage on that top part. And around the window on the far wall, and working my way up towards the top rebar layer there, which is as tall as the wall gets, minus the merlons. Line somewhere around there. We'll just have to level it. But that side is really getting up there. Got a bit of work left to do on that side. You can see that very top rebar, it only overlaps like an inch or something, but since it's right next to the rebar below it that overlaps feet, it'll be fine. And yeah, so I got all this connected, all those separate areas here, got the poles out, and that's all connected up to there. So getting this connection from there up to there, so there's still a gap there. But once that gets connected, that's going to significantly increase the structural stability of the whole structure. And then similarly over here, though it is just barely connected there, once it gets connected on the top, and then that beam gets filled out, and then I continue to fill out the rest of the beam there. Once that all gets connected one side to the other, with the benefit of the columns here, it's gonna make a big difference. I packed that corner out. There's some big rocks that I put in there, and filled it out. And I think that we're basically ready to. Oh, and I did a good bit on this wall here too. I don't know how well you can see it, but it's got pretty good coverage on all of it. Oh, I would try to pull this pallet off right now, but for that wire right there that's securing it. But in the next video, I'll have this one removed. I think everything is solidified enough that I can take that that corner strap down. And well, yeah, what I'll do is I'll do one more. I'll wait to take the strap down and the pallet down. until I get one more batch cured on this whole beam here, because I don't want the structure to shift over to the right, which is kind of which way it wants to go from that corner, and the way this wants to go, like an inch or two to the right before the tension is added. So once all of the cement is in place and it's all bonded, it shouldn't move at all once I remove the tension. And these will come out soon, and the last piece of lath up there will go on. And I'm just really pleased with this window here, how it's just going to be totally enclosed in the cement, and it's just great. And when the wind comes, it like blows right through and everything. It's just, I'm so happy with it. And here you get an idea, if you can see that lath around the bottom. I'm going to have to kind of like turn this thing into a bathtub, put some lath around the bottom, and kind of build a chimney for that hole. That'll be one of the next metal projects, so that this whole top area can become watertight, to be able to then cover all the cement with aircrete, so that it'll be really well insulated on the ceiling. And then the aircrete can be covered with mortar, so that it's nice and flat. And then the floor level will be somewhere around where I'm standing, and then the whole thing will be flat in there. That's kind of the goal in the long term, but that might take another full week. But I'm going to make as much progress as I can. But that's all for mortar for today. There's an event going on next door, like a field day type event. So I'm going to go down there kind of soon and do a little socializing. And that's all for now. Good morning. It is Monday morning. Just finished some prep. Move those squares up on the outside so I can mortar on the inside and get that wall pretty close to the top on this side. And starting mortar now. Got a haul of recycled materials yesterday from a couple of job sites. Probably a couple $100 worth of materials, some good insulation, pipes, pressure treated wood, plywood, more insulation, some lath, some cedar stuff that might work for the sauna eventually, and a good bit of Trex too, which is great for the connection between the tires, and then framing on the tires, which I'm sure I'll use when I frame out that the chicken coop area. And there's more materials to scavenge from that job site. All of this basically would have ended up in a dumpster, and it's all free, hundreds of dollars of material, and took about an hour to harvest roughly. Because I'm always doing mortar with gloves on, I often put these duct tape cuffs on, and you can see on the edge of the cuff here there's like a burn, or like a rash. It's basically a chemical burn. That was just from one batch of doing mortar. Look at that, it looks kind of like road rash a little bit, but that's what the that's how the mortar can burn you, or it's really the cement, the Portland, that burns. And so basically what I did here is I didn't apply my cuffs properly. It needed to be further higher up, so that the cuffs of my gloves were chafing on my arm with the mortar in between them, and that's what happens. And here's what I was able to accomplish in that one batch. Got that up to the top, probably about half of the way. Just got some big reinforcement and a lot around the little window. It's almost all connected there. You got some good coverage on those squares. Just kind of bulging in the middle, so those poles are all just kind of leaning against it and pushing it out a little bit. That got connected there, as well as up top now. with those rebar. And I got some really good coverage over here. Wasn't able to get over there. But, see if you can see this. I don't know about the lighting, but I got basically a smooth coat on part of that. Oh, that reminds me, I gotta clean off that carabiner there, which got mortar on it before it dries too much. And then let's see if I can just kind of lean to the outside here. So there's a bunch of coverage on this whole outside, and other areas out there. I can't really tell if you can see, but the ladder's got a good position to be able to do a lot of that. And maybe, well, those squares will come down after. There's another coat on the inside. Just have to wait for that to get sufficiently cured. And again, here's this window. One thing about this window, so here's up against the wall. If you're looking out the window, that's the furthest angle you can get. I wanted to make the window so that you can't really see the public ball field or whatever from this window, so that there's privacy going both ways, and there's not an idea that there's like a window overlooking it or whatever. It's just a monument, not supposed to be a defensive windowed kind of firing point or whatever. So I'm going to try to do another batch and get some more coverage. Probably fill those up as much as I can. Maybe a little more around there, up here. But I think I'll do this piece of lath maybe before I make the mortar. I was able to take that strap down and then took the pallet down that was up to the corner up there, so you can see what that looks like here. Looks kind of cool. Get a good shot of it. So you see the hole. That was like where the corner was, where I built it out with rocks. I think you can see some of the rocks on top as well as the rebar, which comes all the way out to here. There's a bit of a hole behind the lath, so I'll have to really push some wet mortar up into there to fill the whole gap. And similarly over here, there's quite the crevice, which will take a couple applications to fill. But the next batch, I'm going to get as much as I can on here. It's a little difficult to get higher than I can reach, which is right there. And the footing here is really difficult to try to set up a step ladder. So it'll be challenging to get the top half. Similarly with over there, but I think I can set up the step ladder in part of those areas to get all the way up to the top. Still haven't got that piece of lath on yet, but it's actually bulging out in the corner more than I want. You can see how the lath is further out than the rebar, so I'm gonna have to fix that. Hopefully I didn't mess up too bad. But right, I'm gonna fix that and then mix mortar. Hey, Grace. It's Chicken World. What do you think, girl? Alright, we'll go through the names from left to right. There's Clyde, Butterscotch, Grace, Brownie, Kodiak, Klondike, Hercules, Praetorian, Sammy, Coco, Star. Her 5 chicks don't have names yet. Dino, Lil Boogie. Yeah, that's all I can see. I'd like to do another batch, but it says there's a thunderstorm coming. And now I hope the thunderstorm doesn't wash away my hard work. I'll show you just a second. That might be as far as I get for this week. So despite the forecast basically guaranteeing rain, thunderstorms no less, the clouds split, the clouds parted and spared us, and I was able to act accordingly and get a third batch on. And maybe it'll rain after midnight or something, but it should be all good. So we've got coverage on the entire top beam over to there basically. And now I'm working my way towards the far corner, which will probably be the last part that gets done. And once I do all the walls, I'll get started on the merlons, which are the things that jet up top to form the castle crenellations. You can see this window here got all mortared in now, so you can't see that metal part. It's just all mortar, and yeah, lots of progress. Hey kitty, what do you think? She says, I haven't been getting any attention because you've been so busy working. It was a very productive day. Can't remember if I already showed you the backside, but you got a lot done on the backside today. So all the way up to the top, I got a smear coat, and I basically was able to fill in those crevices all in one batch. Hold on, girl. And then on the far side, I got almost all the way out to the window, and basically this wall is probably like 85% done now. But happy with it. And I've also been doing a good bit of structural supports up here and then underneath as well, packing out tires and making sure that all of this weight is properly supported underneath. So that is all for this week. Thanks for tuning in.